Imagine trusting your savings to a man that everyone respects. A visionary who was president of NASDAQ and symbol of prestige and trust on Wall Street. Now, imagine that after years of supposed safe earnings, one day you discover that your money never existed, that everything was smoke. That was what millions of people lived through with Bernard Madoff, the man behind the largest financial scam in history. But this is not only a case of numbers, it is the story of how greed, blind trust, and social prestige created the perfect scam. And today, I am going to tell you the details that you will rarely hear in other places. Bernie, as his friends called him, started in the 60s with a small investment firm. He was charismatic, always impeccable, and transmitted absolute security. In 1971, his company was one of the first to use electronic systems for buying and selling stocks, which gave him fame as an innovator. So much so that he came to be president of NASDAQ, the most important technological market in the world. Who was going to suspect someone like that? That was his first great trick, the facade of respectability. And while all investors suffered the ups and downs of the market, Madoff offered something irresistible. Constant earnings between 10 and 12% each year. No losses, no falls, no economic crises. Always green, always perfect. This, which should have raised suspicions, actually played in his favor. Because on Wall Street, when something sounds too good to be true, people don't ask questions. They just want to get in. What they didn't know was that behind it, there were no magical investments or secret formulas. It was a Ponzi scheme. He used the money from new investors to pay the old ones. A house of cards that came to move 65 billion fictitious dollars. Madoff's key was not just promising earnings, it was how he selected his victims. He didn't go looking for them directly. He made it seem exclusive, like a private club that not just anyone could enter. Many millionaires, celebrities, and even charitable foundations fought to be accepted as Madoff's clients. He understood something very simple. Exclusivity sells more than transparency. Some testimonies tell that if you asked him to enter his fund, Madoff could make you wait months, even years, before accepting you. And that made it so that when he finally let you invest, you felt that you were in the elite circle. But in reality, you were entering his trap. The scam hit everyone equally. Famous multimillionaires like Steven Spielberg, Kevin Bacon, or John Malkovich, large banks like Santander and HSBC, or entire pension funds where thousands of retirees lost what they had saved during their entire life. The psychological blow was brutal. Some investors committed suicide after discovering that they had lost everything. Others were marked forever by the shame of having been deceived by someone so respectable. The House of Cards stayed standing for decades, but everything collapsed in 2008 with the Great Financial Crisis. The investors, frightened, started to withdraw their money, and Madoff, who had never invested anything and had had numerous expenses, didn't have real funds to return to them. On December 10, 2008, Madoff confessed to his sons that everything was a big lie, and they themselves reported him to the FBI. The final figure, $65 billion swindled, the largest individual fraud in history. Many documentaries focus on the figures, but there is something more chilling. First, Madoff's double life. While he swindled, he was also a philanthropist. He made donations to universities and charitable organizations with the same money he stole. Second, the most perfect fraud, since for years there were analysts who suspected. The most famous, Harry Markopolos, sent complaints to the government warning that Madoff's numbers were impossible. And what did the authorities do? Nothing. They ignored him. And third, the family impact. His son Mark committed suicide in 2010, unable to bear the shame for what his father did. Another son, Andrew, died of cancer in 2014, convinced that the stress and infamy accelerated his illness. For all this, we can see how the scam not only ruined thousands of victims, but also destroyed his own family. Finally, in 2009, Madoff pleaded guilty to 11 federal crimes. He was sentenced to 150 years in prison, which is the maximum possible sentence. In the court, many victims cried with rage while he maintained calm. There is no doubt that he had the psychological traits of an authentic psychopath. He showed no true repentance, only accepted that he had lost control of his own lie. Madoff spent the rest of his life in prison until dying in 2021 at 82 years old. The most incredible thing is that even after his fall, some investors still defended him. They said, "Bernie deceived us, yes, but while it lasted, he made us feel secure." So you can imagine to what point Madoff came to manipulate minds and play with the trust of those investors. The conclusion of this whole story is that his legacy is not just a financial story. It is a warning that even the most respected men can hide being the greatest monsters in their interior, and that behind greed, exclusivity, and prestige can hide the perfect trap. Today, the name of Bernard Madoff is synonymous with fraud. But the questions remain in the air. How could he deceive the entire world for more than 30 years? Was it his talent for manipulating that led him to achieve that, or the voluntary blindness of those who preferred to believe in the impossible? Perhaps the most disturbing thing is not the scam itself, but thinking that at this very moment, someone else could be repeating the story, and that innocent people were falling into their trap. And you? Do you think that they would have deceived you too? I read you in the comments, and if you want to discover the next master of crime, follow us and join this adventure.